What's up, nerds? Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about some of the things that'll be coming in the Marvel Universe, and the biggest thing that everybody has been worried about is the return of She-Hulk in Avengers number 50. Now, I'm going to start this out by saying that I'm not going to be doing this review like I normally do my others because this is a thick-ass book. Like, there's a whole lot to it, and it would just take too long. Quite honestly, I don't feel like trying to edit this video down to something that would be palatable, so I'm going to try to keep it brief. I'm just going to touch on what is actually being discussed here, because like I said, the biggest thing that everybody's really kind of concerned with is that, yes, the regular She-Hulk, as we have all known her, she's back. You know, she's no longer big and buff like the regular Hulk, or like, you know, Bruce Banner's Hulk. So, we'll just kind of get into some of this. We'll kind of touch on some of the things that are going on. The first thing that we see is this whole, they also break it down sort of into chapters, but I mean, that doesn't really mean a whole lot. We started out with this whole thing with the orb. If you remember, he's kind of like going around, he's taking on the whole responsibility of sort of being like a watcher. So he kind of tries to do the same thing like Watu does, but I mean, he's, you know, he's corporeal. He exists in our world, or not in our world, in their world. So I mean, he's always just there, and he's just watching random shit. Anyway, we go from him over to Kazar, or Kazar, however you pronounce it. He's here in the year, I think, 1 million BC or whatever that, 1 million, there you go. So he's back in time, and we can see where he's being hunted down by this little mini Thanos. And he starts like fighting with the robots and shit like that. And he's just kind of talking about like how he's been sent back in time. We find out that he was sent back in time by T'Challa. So he's kind of working as an agent of Wakanda. And then he comes across some of the like primordial Avengers. We can see Odin here wielding the hammer of Thor, or what will eventually become Thor's hammer. This is Agamotto of the Eye fame. And then there's like a Red Hulk star brand thing. And then of course a Ghost Rider and an Iron Fist and a Phoenix. So we have all of them together, and he's just like, whoa, you know, Avengers Assemble and all that shit. So we go from there back over to, they're basically picking up from what was the last event, World War She-Hulk, where like they were down in Atlantis, the Russians, the Winter Guard, I guess, or Red Widow really, detonated a bomb and shit. And basically Jennifer Walters ended up absorbing all of that, but we see Ghost Rider has picked up Gorilla Man, who had taken her to Atlantis, and then she just kind of like left him there. And so now he's kind of worse for wear, but Ghost Rider's taking him back so he can get medical treatment. And this is what I was talking about. When she was all buff and shit, when she was built like several brick houses, and then we see where she's absorbed all the shit, like her clothes are glowing and everything. She's back to being green. She was red for a while, now she's back to being green. Anyway, she gets back to the Avengers base, and they're trying to like help her out, but she's just kind of ignoring them, trying to like get to somewhere safe and shit. And they're trying to tell her like, no, wait, we need to try and help you. We need to try and like take some of this excess radiation off of you, because they said that she absorbed what? 68 megatons of gamma warhead. It's too much power even for her, and apparently it is, because with each step she's taking, she's like crushing her footprints into the floor and shit. So we get a quick little like flashback to where she's kind of just, I guess, out for a jog. Jennifer's out for a jog, and then she comes up to this downed Celestial, and she goes up to it, and she's talking about the She-Hulk, and, you know, she knew what was best and all this shit. Anyway, she continues on her little mission. They're trying to stop her, but of course, they probably couldn't stop her under normal circumstances, but the fact that she's absorbed all this power, yeah, they damn sure can't stop her. So they're trying to say, like, well, where's Thor? Like, we need him to try and help, like, get her under control or something. Anyway, she takes herself down to this, like, just deserted part of the base and shit, and releases all of the energy. I'm assuming it's some sort of like blast, because we see this like glow coming out of the Avengers Mountain. So they do that, and then we cut back over to where they're kind of talking about in Russia, where they basically, I think it's the Russian government or somebody has brought charges against Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, and this guy who was basically harmed during the whole like struggle between her and Red Widow and all the rest of them. He's talking about like, yeah, I'm pretty much more broken than working at this point, but I don't blame her for that. I blame Red Widow for that. She's the one who should be suffering like the Russian justice and all that. Anyway, so this is where we finally get to see her back in her normal form, because they come up after she like let off all the excess energy, and they're saying like, Jen, are you here? Like, you know, are you okay and everything? So she's like, yeah, Avengers, you bet I am. So like I said, back to normal. And you know what? Hey, it's pretty sexy. She's still very muscular, obviously, got the big old hair and everything, but this is the way that we've always kind of known Jennifer Walters to look. I get the feeling there will probably still be some people who will look at her and be like, she's still too buff. Calm down. It's much less than what she was at, so, I'm not mad at it. It's okay. She looks good. And then, yeah, we see her where she's in court doing her whole thing, telling like the Russian judge and everything, like, all of these charges brought against me are just like stupid. They have no merit and everything like that. She says this entire legal proceeding has been a frivolous, fraudulent, and outright felonious perversion of justice, not to mention a waste of my very expensive time. A formal apology from the entire Russian legal system should be forthcoming forthwith, but I'll settle for the complete and immediate dismissal of all criminal charges levied against me. So that's where we see she goes and she hugs the whole team, and everybody's happy that she's back, but none more than us, right? Anyway, so we go back over to 1 million BC, and we see where the Avenger or the primordial Avengers are kind of still fighting against Thanos. They've managed to like trap him, and then they throw him into this like portal and like transport him away and shit. So they kind of go on talking, and that's where we see I think Kazar finally comes across them or something. Truly, this is the height of human civilization that we see before us, groveling and hiding in trees. So, because he's talking about like what will end up, I'm assuming, becoming humans, many, 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 many years from now. Anyway, we see where the Phoenix is saying, like, please excuse Odin. He still has much to learn in the ways of patience and humility. Perhaps another child would help. Regardless, I hope you'll agree, Kazar, that this era is well protected. Good luck in doing the same for your own time. So he's just kind of there, and he's like, all right, mission complete. And he tells the Time Knife, like, it's time for me to head out of here. So that's where we see Odin and the Phoenix are very much in love and all of that. Anyway, we go over to this whole thing because the central conceit that will be coming is that a whole bunch of Mephisti, whatever. So a whole bunch of them have, well, all of them basically from all of the different multiverses have come together into something called the Council of Red, I think it was. And so there's this one who's talking to this Doctor Doom, who is apparently the Doom Supreme. That apparently he's like conquered his own like world and shit like that. You know how Doctor Dooms are. Anyway, so the Mephistos try to basically convince him to do what he wants, even though Doom is like, yeah, I'm onto your schemes. Like, I know what it is you actually want and all of that. So he's telling him, like, you have a proposal, Snake, out with it. And he says, if it works for them, why not for us? How would you feel, my Lord Doom, about forming a team of your own? So that's when we see even more of this. I'm assuming where Kazar is just kind of going and he's encountering all of these different incarnations of characters. So we have like different people. Who are they? They mentioned them by name. Odin and his assemblage of prehistoric powerhouses, the Spirit Rider, the Samoan Shark Rider, the Wild West Outlaws, Reno Phoenix, and the Starbrand Kid, Sergeant Zardos, Soldier Supreme, and his secret invaders, Wong Fei Hung, legendary master of the Drunken Dragon Fist. That one kind of caught me off guard. The Drunken Dragon Fist. The Black Knight, Bloody Butcher of Camelot, not much change there. Mamadou Fall, the most fearsome Black Panther who ever lived. Musashi Miyamoto, the Samurai of Vengeance. Heroes long forgotten or never known to begin with, lost to the shadows of time, but I saw them all. Basically, he's just kind of going from Earth to Earth, kind of like helping them out and shit. But anyway, as he gets to this particular one, he encounters the Iron Inquisitor, who's basically telling him, like, yeah, did you really think that, like, we didn't notice you kind of going from, Earth to Earth, universe to universe? And he says the secrets have noticed. So anyway, this is where we go back over to the Avengers, who are having a little team meeting, and they're saying, like, what happened with Thor when he was fighting those, like, Slavic gods. And they're like, yeah, the Slavic gods are in intensive care. They're kind of recovering and shit. And they're even kind of positing, like, what's going on with Thor? Doesn't he seem a little bit more brooding than usual? Like, something's going on with him and everything. So they're just kind of talking about, like, everybody that kind of have lost at the moment. Like, Gorilla Man is out. And then, I believe Iron Man is saying that, yeah, like, Thor's having family problems, like, let me go and talk to him and everything. So they kind of carry on talking. This is where T'Challa tells him, like, yeah, I have Kazar going through these different worlds trying to, like, fix shit, or at the very least just kind of, like, surveil what's going on, and then he'll be reporting back and all of that. And then they ask Robbie, like, hey, what's going on? Like, you look really bad, like you haven't been sleeping and shit, like you've been run over with your own car. So he's telling him, like, yeah, I haven't been sleeping very well. And he says, that's probably a good idea, because they told him, like, well, you can go talk to the counselors. We have counselors. And he's like, yeah, that's probably a good idea, Mr. T'Challa. But mostly I need to talk to you guys. We need to talk about what happens when I die. So he's telling them, like, I'm a street racer from East LA with the world's weirdest hot rod, whose coworkers are living legends. I got no right to ask anyone here for anything more than you've already given me, I know. But after seeing what Miss Jen just went through, and then these dreams I've been having, the only family Gabe and I got left is each other. And if I'm going to keep going out there and doing what the Ghost Rider needs to do, well, I just got to know that if anything happens to me, the Avengers will take care of my brother. So they're over here telling him, like, yeah, of course, like, if anything ever happens to you, of course we're going to take care of him. We're going to make sure he's all right and everything. So exactly what you would expect. So he thanks them and everything. He's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go catch fire for a bit to burn off the tears. You guys can go back to arguing now. We were talking about new members, right? So that's where we see Jennifer went to go talk to Namor because they kind of had it out previously. So she kind of comes to talk to him, and he's saying, like, you helped me out with the situation. And even though I no longer have a kingdom, all of my subjects have basically abandoned me. You did something for me, and you proved yourself to be a warrior with honor, and to swear before the seven seas that if there is anything I can do to repay this debt to you, even though I am now a king without a kingdom, I promise you, but speak it, and Namor of Atlantis shall make it so. So she looks at him, she's like, anything, huh? So we go from there back over to Red Widow, who's still trying to like work out her whole plans, and we see where she's talking to someone, and she's kind of like trying, it seems like she's trying to help someone, but we don't see who just yet before there's an explosion. Someone crashes in through the wall, and it's the Squadron Supreme, or Sinister, whichever one they're going to go by here. But this is where I'm saying, like, they're kind of also tying in that past event with Heroes Reborn, when you basically had the Squadron Supreme basically being the main, I don't really know if you can call them the main heroes. They weren't really heroes. So we see where they're busting in, and basically they're here to get him, Hyperion. So before they could do anything, Dr. Spectrum is immediately killed by Power Princess when she reaches her hand through his chest from behind and grabs his little crystal and shit. And she's over there saying, like, this power prism of his, I've always thought it belonged with someone who understands what power truly means. Someone like me. So Blur is over here telling her, like, I'll kill her. Should I kill her, Power Princess? It's like blinking. I don't even notice I'm doing it anymore. Ever since they took our world away. And she's telling him, like, no, stand down. We're not puppets anymore, remember? Of governments or of devils. You know what it means to be a puppet, don't you, Widow? She says, like, he came to me looking for freedom from who they made him to be. And she's like, did he? Well, good. Then keep going. So, like I said, that's basically what was going on here. She's trying to help, I guess, like, deprogram him and shit. So, we go over to now Jane Foster as Valkyrie, who's kind of like, she's meeting with this other doctor who's saying, like, yeah, I needed your help with this, like, autopsy or whatever. She's like, okay, well, what did you need my help with? And he's like, no, not you. Based off of what this is, like, it's a zombie who's not actually dead. I kind of figured we probably needed your other persona to help us out. So she transforms, and then, because the Deathlock, as you could tell, that was a Deathlock, he sat up and was like, an inter-universal agent of Avenger Prime. I have crossed 1,000,000 firmaments to bring this Earth a warning of multiversal massacre, of the Infinity Requiem. Scanning for Avengers. Avenger detected. Jane Foster the Valkyrie. So she changes. She's like, sorry, dead man, I'm not an Avenger. So he just tells her, like, yeah, not yet. And then we go from there. Like I said, it just keeps going and going. There's a whole lot of shit packed in here. We go over to Gorilla Man. He's talking to Ursa Major, who is, if you remember, he was kind of like outed as being the traitor to the Winter Guard. So they kind of like slashed his throat and left him there and shit. So he's telling him, like, if you feel like waking up and joining me, Ursa Major, and this whole living thing, well, I'll be here waiting for you, buddy, whenever you're ready. So we go from there back over to the past, where the Iron Inquisitor is now fighting with Khazar and shit. He's telling him, like, relax, I'm not here to do anything as pedestrian as murder you. He says one time traveler killing another outside of their native areas creates a sort of chronal shrapnel that draws the attention of those damned Deathlocks, and that's just the sort of trouble my master uses me to help him avoid. That's why I brought you here, to a world that will soon be forgotten, years before you were ever born, where the job of killing you will be done for me. And then he like tells him, like, oh yeah, and don't bother with the knife. You're not going to be able to get out of here because I already basically disabled and shit. And he's like, well, it's a knife, so it has more than one use. So he uses that to cut at his helmet and shit. And then that's where we see the helmet comes off, and we see who it actually is. And we're about to get like his story here in a second, because we find out it's actually Howard Stark, Tony's dad. So he's telling him, like, you're an insect, a savage one, but a bug nonetheless. You are punching far above your weight class. This is a war made only for the most transcendent of cosmic combatants, for immortal gods and super kings, for the cosmic forces of nature, for Starks. So that's where we kind of get his backstory, where he basically was doing his thing. He invented a whole bunch of shit. We see where he has like a flying car and everything. And that was kind of like always his goal. He always wanted to be on top of shit. So he says, I founded Stark Industries and amassed more billions than any man in the history of the planet. I created S.H.I.E.L.D. and even saved the world a few times, but Howard Stark was still just a man cursed to stand at the forefront of an age of miracles. I could see the world that was coming, teeming with mutants and immortals and superhumans, born of science and the mysteries of the stars, while my angry liver and the wrinkled face staring back from the mirror reminded me every morning that I was envisioning a world that would never be mine. I began to grow envious of my own children. I'd studied the history of the Earth's greatest powers, the legacy that had shaped the planet. The Starks deserved to be mentioned right alongside them. So he says, yeah, I did what I do best. I made a deal. We see where he shows up to this like little corner where there's this seemingly homeless dude who he tells him like, yeah, I'm here because I had a meeting or whatever. He's like, oh, good, Howard. I'm glad that you showed up. We've been waiting. Let's talk business. So basically, yes, it is Mephisto. So he makes a deal with him, and basically the deal is, yes, you can be immortal, but first you got to kill your son. So he goes back home and kills Tony. And then he descends into hell, where basically he becomes an armorer for all of the Mephistos. He says, as a soulbound slave to Mephisto, as Hell's armorer, as the Iron Inquisitor, chief security officer for the Council of Red, the devils who want to rewrite the history of entire universes and topple the walls of reality itself, to make a hellscape of all that is, was, or will ever be, all of it drowned in red. So he's over here telling Khazar, like, you should be thanking me. Like, you get to die here today. You don't have to be a part of anything that's going to be coming soon. So, of course, Khazar is kind of confused. He's like, why would he leave me here on this planet with no people and in this time period and shit? And then he turns around and sees, oh, Galactus is here. That's the reason why he left him there, because, well, Galactus is about to eat the planet, so he was about to die. Anyway, he's saying, like, well, I spent my whole life fighting against things that are bigger and more savage than me with just a knife and in my loincloth, so why should today be any different? And he leaps at, like, Galactus' head. So that's where we go back over to Doom, who's meeting with Mephisto again, or it could be a different Mephisto. Anyway, he's telling him, like, yeah, I finally assembled, like, my team and everything. He's like, oh, good, how did you manage to do it? He's like, do you think that Doom has to bargain? Like, no, I told them what the terms would be, and they came along with me. So he says, very well, Doom cares not about the order of Earths, because he's telling him, yeah, Earth 616 has to be the last one. Just for our own reasons, that's going to be the last one that is destroyed. So he's telling him, like, all right, yeah, it doesn't matter to me. He says, it matters only that we begin immediately. So this is where we see another version of the primordial Avengers again with Odin, but he's saying like, oh no, everyone else is dead. The Gorilla Phoenix, the Savage Iron Fist, and Lady Starbrand, they're all dead. So he's saying like, but I'm still alive, so I'm about to fight back against this threat. So of course it doesn't really do him all that good. He throws his hammer at Doom, who immediately like shoots these flames at him, and yeah, we can see it had the effect, because he's saying, yeah, even the Asgardian wouldn't be able to hold against these flames, like he's about to die. And then the kid Thanos is like, he better not be dead, because we had a deal. I get to kill all the Odins. So he tells him like, look at me, before he shoots him and shit. And then we see where this goblin character is taking these flaming skulls from the writers and saying like, okay, fine, you can have the Odins, but all of the writers are mine, because I like taking their skulls and shit. And then we see where this one is, who was it? Black Skull, I think it was, because he's basically Red Skull, but with the Venom symbiote. So he's killing a Black Panther, and that's where we see the whole team assembled, the whole team of evil and shit. So we'll kind of get some more on them later on. Anyway, they're saying like, well, that was over really quickly, like which Earth is next and shit. Anyway, we go back over to Robbie, who's sitting in his car with T'Challa, telling him, like, yeah, this is where I come, because the car is pretty much the only place I can sleep. I've been having all this, like, noise in my head, and this is the only place it kind of, like, goes away to a manageable level. So he's telling him, like, sometimes I almost see, but then someone pulls my head off and laughs, because he's able to, like, kind of see what the other writers throughout time and, like, on these other Earths, what they basically saw, like, in their moments when they die. So he's saying, like, that's the thing that's been keeping me up. He says, I wake up with one thought, setting fire to every bone in my body. So T'Challa asks him, like, what is that thought? But before he can tell him, the alarm is raised because Namor shows up. and immediately starts talking to T'Challa, telling him like, "I need to talk to everybody and everything like that. Where is Captain America or Thor or even Stark? I could speak with another Avenger. There's too much history between you and me." So he's basically saying like, "I'm here to make amends," and then he tells him like, "Here, as a token of my sincerity, I found this thing like skulking around Atlantis." So he throws the Deathlock down and immediately does a scan and detects what an Omni Avenger found, which is apparently Ghost Rider, because it immediately causes both of them to like teleport out of there. To which Namor is like, "You're gonna blame me for what just happened and shit, aren't you?" But T'Challa tells him like, "This is something much bigger than the issues between you and me, Namor. Go back to your empty throne room. The Avengers will handle this." And that's when Valkyrie shows up and she's saying like, "Oh, hi, like do you think maybe the Avengers could also handle this?" Because she brought another Deathlock. But this one also does a scan and says he doesn't detect any Omni Avengers. So that's where we go over to Earth 818 and we see the Deathlock took Robbie to this other planet and is telling him, or he's asking him at first, like, "This is a place where it happened. This is another Earth, isn't it? You brought me to an Earth where a Ghost Rider was murdered." So he's telling him, like, yeah, not just the writer, an entire age of heroes died here. Where we're at is supposed to be Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan, in the 21st century. So because the heroes were killed, none of that ever happened. So he says, "It was your own spirit of vengeance that brought us here, Robbie Reyes. A spirit stronger than any I've ever seen." So he's just saying, like, all the dead writers, the killers are doing this over and over, all across the multiverse, Earth after Earth. Who the hell are they? So this is where he finally like tells us the name of the group. He says, "Doom Supreme and his multiversal masters of evil. We Deathlocks were bringing a warning to your universe, to Earth 616, a nexus world of vital importance, because of the presence there of," and that's when they immediately are beset upon by these different war machines who are basically the soldiers of the Black Skull. So he's telling him like, "They're war machines, soldiers of this world's supreme ruler, the Black Skull. I would recommend we withdraw. If fully unleashed, your Hell Charger is capable of outgunning or outrunning anything in any known universe." And he's like, "No, not this time." He says, "The Call of Vengeance just dragged me into this universe. Don't understand how that's possible, but I can tell you one thing for sure. This here Ghost Rider didn't come to ride." So he hops out with the flaming chainsaw and they start fighting back against them. And that brings us back over to the whole multiversal masters of evil and shit, which is a damn mouthful. And they're standing there saying, like, "Which Earth is this? Like, this isn't like the other ones. This isn't like a prehistoric time," because they're also detecting the air is filled with radio photons. "This isn't the Stone Age. Where have you brought us, Doom?" And he says, "The Deathlocks have converged at this nexus. We've come to hunt them." So this is where basically the guy in red is Killmonger, King Killmonger. Anyway, he's saying, like, "I agreed to slaughter gods and Black Panthers and claim Earths in the name of the one-man nation of New Wakanda. My name, not to take orders from you, Latverian." So he's like, "I brought us together. I choose the Earth. That was the agreement. But slaughter you shall, Killmonger." And this is when they're immediately interrupted by Orb, who has shown up and is here to basically just running his mouth, telling him, like, "Oh yeah, I'm just here to watch. Like, I'm not here to try and stop y'all. I'm not here to, make you feel bad or anything. Like, I'm just here to watch because I go doing the whole watcher thing. I'm here to, like, observe things that are just, like, meant to be time changing or world changing, whatever the hell." He says, "I'm not here to stop you or give you or help you or give you cryptic clues about what's to come, though I can if you like." And then very quietly he says, "Beware the Ant-Man." So we'll see what that means. I get the feeling that's going to maybe be some sort of clue that'll be pivotal in some sort of way, but we'll find out. Anyway, he's telling them like, "Yeah, I'm just here to do like my sacred job," and they just kind of look at him before little Thanos is like, how does it speak? Suppose I'll have to cut it open to find out." And then Doom tells him, "You're not the Watcher." He says, "Yeah, see, on this Earth, the big guy died a while back and passed his secrets on to me." So he's telling him like the whole thing about having to be the Watcher and all this shit. It says, "I witness all the truly awful things you can't unsee, all the horrible, mind-shattering secrets buried across the heavens in shallow graves, the silent suffering, and any other kinds of suffering too, and the people who so perversely delight in it, the real sickos, I mean. I do my very best to make them all feel seen. When the orb pops up, it gives you chills, right? Because if I'm here, you can bet something epic is about to happen, something world-shaking, universe-shaking, something like all of you." And then he like introduces us to each of them. He says, "Doom Supreme, the Doom above all, Dark Phoenix and her pet Berserker," which is basically, it looks like Destiny with the power of the Phoenix, and then she has a Wolverine pet. So, and then he says, "A young Thanos, still wet with his mother's blood, King Killmonger, conqueror of both Wakanda and Asgard, Norman Osborn, the ghost goblin with his satchel of exploding skulls, so that's why he had the skulls. And then he says Air Venom, the Black Skull, the almighty masters of evil, assembled from across the eras, from across the earths. You people have the potential to be the finest mass murderers I have ever had the pleasure to witness. He's like, I'm sorry for getting choked up, but this is such a big moment, and I simply can't wait to see who you're going to kill next, which, of course, it's him. So they kill him. He's like, yeah, I probably should have seen that coming. You just wanted the eye. So yeah, they go and they take the eye and shit, and they leave him there. And it says, well, Doom is saying, for all that is, was, or ever shall be, already wriggles its existence within the shadow of doom, and I have never been one to simply stand and watch. Let us begin. So we see where, yes, they're at Earth 616, because I guess they're finally done. If part of the deal was we were going to save this one for last, then apparently they've already killed all the other multiverses, or all the other universes and shit. And then we see here where Orb is slowly like bleeding to death, and he's kind of talking to his mom. I guess he's having a delusion about her, and he's like, "See, Ma, like I finally did what you always wanted. Wait, yeah, I'm finally dying." And then he says, "So why do you still look so disappointed?" As he slowly fades into black. So that's where we go back over to Khazar. We see he's on very obviously some sort of alien planet, judging by these things he's hopping around with. And he's saying, like, I'm still trapped in the past, still cut off from the Avengers. No way to warn them about the Iron Inquisitor, about the importance of the Phoenix and the Starbrand, the truth of Thor's birth. No way to help them against the army of their greatest enemies that's coming for them. Not yet, at least. But I have made a new friend and picked up a few new tricks. So he launches himself out into orbit, and you saw the world that he was on. It's very vibrant. There was a whole lot of little animals and shit. So he jumps up and he's telling Galactus, like, oh yeah, this one's no good, boss. Like, I'll find you another one. This one's all rotten and moldy, and there's nothing that's actually living here. So he's saying, like, I'll find you another planet, but what he's actually doing is he's saving this one, he's sparing it by lying to Galactus and saying, like, oh yeah, you don't want to eat this world, I'll find you another one. But he's actually going to go and look for a planet that doesn't have any life on it, and he'll let Galactus eat that one. So he's telling Khazar, like, okay, well, be quick about it because Galactus hungers. And he's just like, yeah, me too, boss. And then he finishes it by saying, I will find my way home. I will track my enemies across the starlit jungles of time and space. And then we'll both feed, big guy. Avengers assemble. Avengers forever. And that's where we leave off on that for right now. So like I said, this was basically setting up, I'm assuming, everything that shall be coming in the actual Marvel universe, I guess, or at least as far as the Avengers are concerned. We'll see what ends up happening. There was a whole lot in here, and we're still not done. This doesn't actually tie into the rest of it, but this is just kind of like a little backup story with this kid who's being pursued by the Brood. And so as he starts trying to like fight against them and shit, Thor shows up and, you know, manages to help him out. He starts fighting against them and is like killing the Brood and everything. So he starts, yeah, doing his whole thing. He's fighting against them. And of course, the kid is very much afraid. He doesn't really know what these things are or how to fight against them or anything. So he has one that almost like sneaks up on him, but he's able to like stab it with this little like dagger and shit that he has. And then, of course, Thor does manage to kill all of them using his lightning. So he's telling them, like, enough gaming about. So the kid is thinking to himself, like, I still don't believe it. He cannot be real. And yet he's saying, like, you really are Thor. He's like, of course I am. Did you doubt it? He says, I thought you were just a story. To which Thor tells him, well, there are many stories about me. Are you well? And he's like, those things, like, what were they? So Thor tells him, like, they were just a hunting party. They were part of a group known as the Brood and all that. It kind of explains what they were. So he's saying, like, were they going to eat me? He's like, worse, they would have made you one of their own. So he says, I go to seek their nest. The Brood Queen must be driven from your world. Return to your home, son of Midgard, and take heart. You fought bravely. So he tells him, like, wait. He says, your hammer, it's the same as the one on the stone, isn't it? Because we see this stone that has, like, a hammer carved into it and shit. So he's like, Mjolnir? Yes, it is. So he says, it's so heavy. How can you lift it? Because he did try to pick it up, but of course he wasn't able to. And so he like kind of tosses it in the air like right in front of him. He's like, Mjolnir's not heavy. The hammer may only be wielded by a worthy hand, by my hand. So the kid asks him, like, so I'm unworthy? He's like, peace. Mjolnir was ensorcelled by the All-Father himself. It is mine. So he's saying, like, but how can I become worthy? He's like, become worthy? You are but a child of Midgard and no god. What is your name, lad? So that's where he tells him, Arthur. He's like, oh, well then don't worry. Everyone finds a weapon that is meant for them and everything, because yes, that's King Arthur. So very cute little story. I actually did find it entertaining, I'm not going to lie. So there was that as well. But I mean, all that, like I said, there was just a lot. If I had actually gone through this the way that I do my other reviews, it would have taken over an hour, I'm pretty sure. So that's why I was like, no, I need to try and trim this down. I'm just going to kind of skim through it and give you the main beats of what's basically going on. But like I said, I think the thing that most people are going to care about more than anything is that She-Hulk is back. Like the way that we all know her to look. So just in time for her series that will be coming soon enough, and for, I'm assuming, the TV show as well, because they couldn't necessarily have the TV show with her looking more like the normal She-Hulk, and then in the comics she's all, big and burly and built, like I said, like several brick houses. So I'm pretty sure that's part of the reason why they did this. But, you know, at the end of the day, she's back. We have, the regular She-Hulk back, and we'll see what ends up happening with this whole, like, multiversal Masters of Evil. I mean, like I said, if they're already on Earth 616, then I'm assuming they did kill all the rest of the universes, if that was the whole deal that Doom made with Mephisto. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, that's where we're going to end it on this one. So I don't know if anybody read this. If you have any thoughts on it, where do you think this whole thing is going to go? It seems like they're trying to tie in a whole lot of different shit together. So we'll see. I don't really have much faith that they'll be able to like balance it out correctly, but I guess we'll find out. So yeah, if y'all have any thoughts on this, feel free to share them with me down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, then definitely make sure to like the video. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell if you'd like to know whenever I have new content coming out for you. But if you'd also like to share out this video, I definitely do appreciate that as well. If you're done here, then go and read a book. If you have time, maybe this one, I don't know. But if not, then I'll see you on my next video.